And now we move on to ads, and we're going to a company that Aardman has definitely had an affinity with in the past, Cadbury's, and this time we're talking about their Creme Eggs. Creme Eggs' most popular ad campaign has always been the rabbit who lays them, which is bizarre, but Cadbury have done much stranger ads in the past and future, and I'd actually argue this is one of them, where they do various ways in which people eat the Creme Eggs in relation to the star signs. Not sure what they were thinking of when they came up with that idea, but it does lead to some interesting vignettes, and I might as well just riff on each one.
Hi, I'm Leo. I eat the lion's share.
I've heard of werewolves, but were-lions? And they apparently like to eat chocolate. Although to be fair, that probably would kill a werewolf actually.
Aries, I give it a good battering.
Apparently, Aries also likes to dress like Del Boy, so shouldn't he actually have a Pernod and blackcurrant instead?
Libra, I like to weigh up the alternatives. Wait, hey!
I wasn't aware that the cat from Red Dwarf liked Creme Eggs. Is this ad just going to be having a bunch of cameos from characters from classic sitcoms and how they like to eat Creme Eggs?
Cancer, and I'm a shell man myself.
Okay, well that shoots that theory down, and I'll probably best skip this one before I make some horrifically offensive joke that I can't hide behind Huck in making.
Aquarius, and sometimes I get carried away.
But that won't stop me doing that for this one. I think you got the wrong studio, love. The food fetish set is next door. That's where they're filming Chocolate Bukkake 5.
Virgo, and this is my first one.
Same for you there, my dear. I think we really need to put the signposts up more clearly. Also, they totally stole that joke from Sabrina Online.
Capricorn, mind if I butt in?
That guy kinda looks like me, which is fitting I guess since I am actually a Capricorn, though I don't wear creepy sweaters like that. I get enough trouble with people telling me I look creepy, I don't need to add to that panache.
Scorpio, one nip from me and it's history.
Wow, even Shantae hasn't got hair whipping powers like that. Oh wait, hair whipping? Oh no, I'm getting Willow Smith flashbacks! Hopefully Will Smith doesn't punch me in the face for that remark.
Pisces, and I dive right in.
I genuinely don't know what to say about that one. Who knew fish could survive inside cream and caramel?
Gemini, and I like to slurp it. Bite it, slurp it, bite it.
Okay, this is getting a bit too sexual, even for me. Oh wait, was that the intention? To make it all just a bunch of double entendres?
Sagittarius, I could eat 2 or 3 on a trot.
Oh yeah, this is some sort of fetish video for somebody out there. Not sure who exactly, since I don't think there's ever a way you could make stop motion characters sexy.
Taurus, and I go at it like a bowl of sweet chop.
So you destroy it and leave it in tatters then? I suppose that makes sense. It's what I do to Creme Eggs. I can't stand them myself. In all seriousness, this is a very funny ad, though it is weird that they detach jokes like this to Creme Eggs of all things. Maybe they were working on this as a short film and then they got the commission for the Creme Egg ad and decided to adapt it for that. Either way, much like the Crunchy ads, it doesn't make me want to buy one, but it certainly is fun to watch.
How do you do it?
And now we move on to a sweet that I actually do love and is one of Aardman's most popular ads, the Wine Gums Hutsmon ad, which is also known as the ad that spawned one of the most popular catchphrases of the 90s.
Hutsman, there's juice, loose, about this house.
Well, it was in England anyway. The equivalent of the US would have probably been this.
Nobody better lay a finger on my butterfinger.
And that also had a famous animation studio attached to it, just like this one. This ad shows off something that Aardman doesn't do all that often, having stop motion alongside a human. They did it in the Sledgehammer music video, though I can understand why they didn't do it again that much afterwards, since unlike puppets and other objects, humans involuntarily move a tiny bit even when standing still, so it makes stop motion an even bigger nightmare than it already is. Funnily enough, that moose you see sort of became the mascot for Wine Gums for a bit in the future, so I guess he got tired of flying Dorothy around Oz and decided to get a proper job. Admittedly, the animation in this ad is done very smoothly, and you can't tell of any kind of mistakes that are made or any kind of cheap shortcuts. Well, except for the final shot where the guy dancing is clearly a separate shot over superimposed moving objects, but to be fair, with the amount of moving objects on screen, having to take shots of him alongside them would have been an Everest climbing level ordeal, so I can understand understand them cheating a little bit there. Still, for a simple concept for an ad, it's a lot of fun, which helps that the music is very catchy, and having stop motion creations keep in time with music is incredibly hard. I mean, having animated characters match time with music in general is very hard, but stop motion especially, and here it lines up perfectly. It's funny just how much effort Aardman puts into their ads. It's actually quite endearing, to be honest, but hey, when these jobs are paying your bills, you might as well make them look good. Maybe I should try that sort of work ethic for my jobs.
Set the juice loose!
And so, we move on to something that Aardman, but above all else, stop motion in general exceeds in, being unintentionally creepy. And being an expert on both of those things, I can say that this one is one of the best examples of both of them. This is an ad that was made to promote the London Film Festival in 1994. Oh, the same year I was born in, there's irony for you. The idea is having an audience of people in the cinema watching films, and the experience of watching them pulls them into a world that is like the film that they're watching. Not the most original idea for a movie ad, but it's always a blast to watch. But I must ask, Aardman, why did you make the audience look like this? Are you trying to say that moviegoers are creepy, ugly monsters? Well, that is definitely true if you go to a midnight screening, but still, these guys just look horrifying, and it really doesn't help the dark set and the creepy music and the sound design. It's just those huge, toothy, ugly grins they have. They freak me out, and this shot doesn't help matters either. Yeah, keep away from me, you weirdos. I don't know if this helped attract people to the festival, but if I saw this ad now, I'd avoid it like the plague. Though to be fair, when you make your own movies, going to a film festival is like its own form of torture, since you spend the whole time comparing the movies you're watching to the kind that you make, and by the end of it, you're more bitter than a rotten cherry mixed with kale. So having this kind of ad for a film festival is sort of fitting for me, since this kind of sums up how I feel when I attend one. But now, let's move on to something that is a little less creepy, but nonetheless just as evil. Insurance companies. In particular, the company known as the National Accident Helpline, and as expected, they advertised the idea of helping out the little guy with their policies. Well, whether that's true or not, that's none of my business, but we're here to talk about the ad, which includes... Oh, hi Rex, haven't seen you in a while. Okay, so that's not Rex the Run, but it's just a separate character who shares a similar design, who this time is voiced by Joe Pasquale.
I went to National Accident Helpline. They're the biggest and the most experienced.
I guess he got lost on his way to Blackpool and then got turned into a dog. But what sort of person could be the complete opposite of his voice to star alongside him in these ads? Well, none other than Brian Blessed, of course.
And I think I should get some compensation.
Don't make me laugh, underdog.
Because the other side pays all the costs.
The other side pays all the costs.
You're not laughing there, are you?
Well, this is a role that certainly fits in better than one of the other Aardman ads he's in. As you'd expect, it's about this little underdog going up to the giant, faceless, nameless insurance guy to get compensation for an accident he's been in, but him refusing, so he decides to go to the NAH. They're rather simple ads, and to be honest, hearing these two polar opposite voices arguing with each other is actually really funny. I always imagine that if Joe and Brian ever screamed at the top of their lungs at the same time, it would shatter the very fabric of existence, but thankfully they don't do that here. The ads did get a bit more elaborate as they went on, even incorporating popular songs and having full-on sets, but they used the guys less, which is a shame, but it is still kind of cool to see Aardman return to these designs again after such a long time. Even if seeing them in the ad is kind of odd, it's still cool to see, since ironically Rex himself was also a bit of an underdog in the Aardman catalogue. Shame we didn't really get to see any more doggy dialogues with these ads though.
Underdog.co.uk.
And so we come to the last part of the video, and since I ended off the last Aardmay with a review of a music video, I feel that it was appropriate to end off this one the same way, and thankfully Aardman has had their hand in making other music videos as well. Last time I talked about one of the biggest and most influential new wave songs of the 80s, with one of the most creative, colourful and imaginative music videos of all time. This time we're looking at more or less the exact opposite, with a throwback 70s nostalgia song from 1996 with a very down-to-earth and most mostly true to reality music video. Of course, there's still some cartoon elements in there, and has sadly mostly gone forgotten by the general public, but me personally, I think I might actually like this just as much as Sledgehammer. Yes, this time we're talking about Never in Your Wildest Dreams by Tina Turner and Barry White. I will be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of either Turner or White, but they are both very, very good singers and have done some amazing music in the past. And with there being a massive 1970s revival movement in the 90s, and with both them being some of the biggest soul stars of their generation, seems only fitting that they bring us another 70s revival song for the decade. The song is definitely in the vein of seduction and sexual songs in the style of something that Marvin Gaye would do. And it is a very good song in that regard, with lots of lo-fi synthesizer sounds, and of course the amazing bassy voice of Barry White.
I hear people walking, people talking.
But of course, we're not here to talk about the song itself, we're here to talk about the music video. Said music video this time was made by Peter Lord himself, which you can kind of tell because the design of the humans in the video have that slightly more uncanny valley style to them, as opposed to Nick Park's very exaggerated cartoony style. Though in this case that worked out because they're supposed to resemble who the singers actually are, and one drawback with Nick Park's style is that you really can't capture the way people actually look with his style. Admittedly, Lord's style can be a little creepy sometimes, like during the first close-up of Tina Turner's face definitely took me aback a little bit. I was unaware that Tina Turner was a Bratz doll, but you do get used to it, and he is very good with depicting body shapes and having them look both cartoony, but in a weird way somewhat realistic, though that did get him into a bit of trouble with this video, but we'll get into that later. The basic premise of the video is basically Turner and White coming to meet each other in their respective limousines, both of which are insanely huge on the inside, so I guess Aardman are stealing Time Lord technology again, and are just going through their regular routine, or preparing themselves to get ready to meet the other one. One of which being that apparently Tina Turner likes to knit. And I mean, seriously likes to knit. She basically does nothing else throughout the entire video, which I will admit is actually kind of funny, that the idea that Tina Turner loves knitting, and apparently the inside of her limousine has enough space to accommodate an entire walk-in wardrobe and a swarm of paparazzi, which you would think that the chauffeur wouldn't have allowed them in the first place, but whatever. There's even a bar in there with a stage including some very familiar cameos, and one not so familiar cameo. If you can't tell, that's supposed to be Antonio Banderas, who is there because he also did a version of this song with Tina Turner. I do wonder which one he prefers, this animated rendition of him or the version of him that shows him as a cat who wears nothing but a hat and boots. Barry White, on the other hand, has a much more laid-back approach to when he's approaching, which makes sense because that's more of the kind of person he is, such as getting a massage from what looks like a cartoon version of Mickey Rooney's character from Breakfast at Tiffany's. Not sure whose idea that was, but evidently it's not something you'd be able to get away with these days. Having a bath and ironing his shirts. When I say this, it kind of makes me think we're actually watching an old Marlon Brando here. Speaking of which, there is a little bit of controversy with this video, and no, it's not because of Barry White's masseuse in the video. See, when the video was finished and made, apparently Tina Turner loved it, but Barry White hated it, and the big reason for that is because they felt they were making fun of his weight in the video. I can certainly understand his mentality there, especially since the model in which they gave to his caricature is not a very flattering kind of size and shape, and it's probably made worse by the fact that how Tina Turner's caricature, despite having a very odd looking face, does look unbelievably sexy. So I guess I was wrong, it is possible to do that. And this probably isn't helped by the fact that at the time this video was made, both of them would have been in their 50s at the time. However, despite one moment near the end of the video with Tina Turner giving him the jumper that she's been making throughout the video being way too small for him, which I saw more as that she just wasn't very good at getting the measurements down, less about them making fun of his actual size, and the very unflattering size and shape of his model, I personally think they were actually quite respectful to White. They don't do any cheap jokes with his weight, like having him step into his limousine and having the rear fender scraping against the road or anything, or when he gets into his bath having all the water flow out like it's a tsunami. They actually treated him with quite a great deal of respect. Now, of course, I myself am not Barry White, more's the pity because I would love his voice. So if he felt he was misrepresented in the video, that is kind of a shame, though if the ghost of Barry White just happens to be listening, I do just want to say this: you looked better fat, if I'm honest. You looked more cuddly and welcoming. When you were skinny, you looked rather creepy. I get the feeling that when I die, Barry White is not exactly going to be giving me the best reception when I arrive in heaven. Regardless of of that, this actually is a really cool and funny music video. Not to mention the depiction of a much more American style cityscape and the style of music remind me a lot of the movie Chuck Steel, especially with this presumably being set in LA, though the group of hookers is a little bit head tilting. Granted, it could be argued that this video was not intended to be seen by children, but still I think it's a little bit iffy. It does have a much more straightforward and simple premise compared to other Aardman music videos, as well as the visuals for that matter, but they do fit with this kind of music, and despite that, it is still very creative and has a lot of imagination to it, even with its simple premise. And that just goes to show how much Aardman can show its creativity even in something that has such a simple premise, which in many ways kind of sums up the way Aardman are in general. Very simple ideas, but made in a very creative way, and we've seen that countless times over the last few years since I've been doing these Aardmay videos, from movies, TV shows, TV commercials, and music videos. They've been able to bring us some of the most imaginative, charming, and simply just enjoyable stop motion projects that I have ever seen and have ever been made, period. And that brings us not only to the end of this year's Aardmay, but Aardmay in general, since there really isn't much left for me to talk about in terms of this company. If there is enough stuff that may be brought out in the future, I may return to this another time, but for now, we have come to the end of Aardmay. One hell of a journey it's been, I can tell you that. But onwards and upwards to the next review, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.